Many years ago, I watched a show about a kid named Chris. Awkward, funny, and always getting blamed for everything. Everybody Hates Chris wasn't just a sitcom. It felt like real life, told through humor and heart. Now, years later, I wondered, where did all those familiar faces go? Today, we're taking a journey from then to now and catching up with the cast that made us laugh, relate, and remember. This is Everybody Hates Chris, Then and Now. Let's dive in. First up, we've got Chris, played by the one and only Tyler James Williams. Now, Chris was the firstborn of 3 kids, living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, where he was trying to make it in a black neighborhood, but going to a school where he was the only black kid. Talk about culture shock. Chris had to navigate bullies at school, a super strict mom at home, and his 2 wild siblings, who we'll get to in a sec. Honestly, the kid was just trying to survive. Tyler was only 14 when the show hit our screens, but here's the thing. He wasn't exactly new to the game. Before Everybody Hates Chris, he'd already been in a bunch of commercials, probably selling us something we didn't even know we needed. But his performance as Chris? It was fire. Critics loved him, and that was his big career boost. After the show wrapped, Tyler kept it moving. He starred in Let It Shine in 2012. Yes, he could sing too. Took on some serious roles in The Walking Dead, because why not? And had a little Whiskey Cavalia action on the side. And most recently, he's been stealing the show as Gregory on Abbott Elementary. Now 32 years old, Tyler James Williams is out here thriving, proving that he's way more than just a kid who couldn't catch a break on TV. He's still got it. Up next, we have the one and only Tacina Arnold, who played Rochelle, the mom we all secretly feared but secretly wanted to be like. Tichina was 35 when Everybody Hates Chris premiered, and she brought that tough love energy to the role of Rochelle, whether she was putting Chris in his place or reminding us all who was running the show at home. But here's the thing. Before Everybody Hates Chris, Tichina was already a household name. She'd made us laugh as Pam on Martin, where she was giving us sass and unforgettable one-liners years before stepping into Rochelle's shoes. So by the time Everybody Hates Chris came around, she was no stranger to the spotlight. Now, even though she was dominating on screen, things weren't always easy behind the scenes. During the show's run, Tichina was going through a tough time in her personal life, dealing with heartbreak. But did she let that affect her performance? Not one bit. She still gave us an iconic portrayal of a mom who could dish out discipline but also love deeply. After the show ended, Tichina didn't miss a beat. She starred in Dance Flick, brought her comedy genius to the neighborhood, and even reprised her role in the Martin reboot. Now at 55, she's still showing us why she's a legend in the game, keeping the laughs coming and the energy high. Now let's talk about Julius, aka the Human Calculator, played by Cruz. Man, this dude was the king of saving money. If you breathed too hard near the thermostat, Julius was like, "That's 14 cents worth of heat you just wasted." He worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs, just to keep the family going, and somehow, he never looked tired. That's Dad's superpowers right there. Cruz was 37 when the show kicked off, and honestly, he nailed this role. He brought that calm, cool energy but still had you sitting up straight like, yes sir. And get this, before he was cracking us up on TV, Terry was out here in the NFL. Then he hit our screens in My Wife and Kids, and when Everybody Hates Chris came around, it was a wrap. Dude became a household name. After the show, he took off. From action-packed movies like The Expendables to comedy gold like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And let's be real, white chicks? That's still one of the funniest things he's ever done. That singing in the car scene lives rent-free in all our heads. Terry's now 56 and still out here working, inspiring, and lifting like, literally. He's one of the most loved guys in the black community, and for good reason. And it all started with a dad just trying to stretch a dollar like it was elastic. Stick around. We're just getting started. You know we still gotta talk about the siblings. Remember this little troublemaker? Tanya, aka the youngest sibling, Daddy's favorite and certified Chris tormentor, was played by Emani Hakeim. Listen, if Chris even looked like he was about to do something wrong, Tanya was already snitching. This girl could turn a minor misunderstanding into a full-blown investigation with Julius as the judge and Rochelle as the executioner. And somehow, she always walked away innocent. Must be the youngest child magic. Emani Hakeim was just 12 when she started on the show, but she held her own with the grown-ups like a pro. After Everybody Hates Chris, she kept doing her thing, popping up in different shows here and there. She didn't hit major superstar status like some of her co-stars, but she definitely stayed in the game. Then boom. In 2020, she landed a lead role on the Apple TV show Mythic Quest. Have you seen it yet? It's actually really good, and she's great in it. Now at 31, Emani is doing well, and last time I checked, she was pregnant. Big congratulations to her. Wishing her nothing but love and light in her motherhood journey. From messing with Chris to becoming a mama. That's growth. And then we have Taequ Richmond. Y'all remember Drew, right? Chris's younger brother who somehow looked like his older brother. Taller, smoother, and always had the girls giggling while Chris was just trying not to get beat up before lunch. Drew was that kid who could do everything right without even trying, and Chris? Yeah, Chris had it rough. Taequ was only 13 when the show started, but he came through with that natural cool that made Drew low-key everyone's favorite, even if we pretended he wasn't. But hold up, Taequ didn't just stop at acting. After the show, he kept grinding in TV and film, landing serious roles like in Blue Caprice. And if you haven't seen that one, prepare to be shook. It's a total switch-up from the charming little brother we knew. Oh, and did you know he goes by T-Rich now? Yep. Taequan's also a rapper. Man really said, why not be talented in every category? Acting? Check. Music? Check. Making Chris look bad for 4 seasons straight? Double check. Now at 32, T-Rich is still doing his thing. Whether he's spitting bars, making moves on screen, or just reminding us all how unfair it was that Chris had to compete with this guy in the same house. Now let's get into the ultimate nerdy but loyal bestie, Greg, played by Vincent Martella. This dude was Chris's one and only real friend at Corleone Junior High, which, let's be honest, was basically a survival camp. Greg may have looked like he couldn't fight a cold, but he always had Chris's back. Sure, sometimes he accidentally got Chris beat up, but it was all in the name of friendship, right? Vincent was just 13 when he landed the role, and even back then he was cooking with talent. Not only is he a proud Italian-American, but he also comes from a hard-working family. His dad owns a chain of pizzerias called Captain Tony's. So yeah, while we were out here burning frozen pizza, Vincent had access to real slices and real rolls. But get this, he wasn't just acting on screen. This guy's voice? Gold. He became a household name, or at least a household voice, as Phineas Flynn on Disney's Phineas and Ferb. That gig? Paid nicely. He's been raking it in with that voice for years, and the show's a hit globally. But in Brazil? Oh, they love him over there. Greg could barely survive middle school in Brooklyn. But Vincent? International superstar. Now 32, Vincent is still in the game and still charming as ever. From getting shoved into lockers with Chris, to being the voice behind one of Disney's biggest cartoons, Greg and Vincent really came a long way. Next up is Mr. Omar, brought to life by the legendary Ernest Lee Thomas. You remember him, right? The funeral home guy who showed up at the most random moments, dropping his signature line, "That's tragic," like he was narrating a comedy show about death. Every time he entered a scene, you just knew he was about to make things awkward. Whether he was flirting with Rochelle, giving Chris some bizarre advice, or just casually talking about someone's funeral plans like it was no big deal. A true gem. Ernest Lee Thomas was 55 when he played Mr. Omar. But here's the kicker. This guy had already been in the game for decades. He was Raj on What's Happening, and he carried that comedic energy into Mr. Omar. And he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Ernest was so beloved in his role that they brought him back for the animated series Everybody Still Hates Chris. Yep, Mr. Omar made the jump to animation, proving that no one could do tragic quite like Ernest. Fast forward to now, Ernest is 76, still out here shining bright and spreading good vibes. We wish him nothing but health, happiness, and abundance because he definitely earned it. Keep making us laugh, Mr. Omar. Your legacy is immortal. And now let's talk about another legend, Doc, played by the iconic Antonio Fargas. Doc wasn't just any neighborhood figure. He was like that cool uncle who wasn't afraid to tell you the cold, hard truth. He owned a store, and while the store might not have been the most glamorous place in the world, it became a spot where Chris could find some tough love and occasional jobs. Doc didn't sugarcoat things. If Chris messed up, Doc would let him know, but he also had his back in a way that felt like second fatherhood. Antonio Fargas was 58 at the time, but by that point, he was already a Hollywood legend. This guy was a key figure in the blaxploitation movement, starring in iconic films like Cleopatra Jones, Foxy Brown, and I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. He also brought his charm to TV, appearing as Huggy Bear on Starsky and Hutch. You could say Antonio Fargas had earned his place as a Hollywood icon before Doc even hit the screen. After Everybody Hates Chris, Antonio kept going strong, making guest appearances on shows like House of Lies and Black Lightning, and even reprising his role as Doc in the animated version of Everybody Still Hates Chris. Talk about a legacy. Now 78, Antonio Fargas continues to show us what it means to be a true legend in the industry. We wish him all the best, because his contributions to entertainment will forever be remembered. Next up, let's talk about Miss Morello, played by Jacqueline Mazzarella. She was Chris's teacher, and let's just say teaching wasn't exactly her strongest suit. Miss Morello had a very unique approach to, well, everything, especially when it came to Chris. She'd make wildly inappropriate comments, thinking she was being helpful, but instead, she just made things awkward and hilarious. Whether she was talking about Chris like he was the spokesperson for the entire black race, or making assumptions left and right, Miss Morello's character was all about comedic cringe. But hey, that was what made her so memorable. Jacqueline was 37 at the time she played Miss Morello, and while her role on Everybody Hates Chris was iconic, she did take on smaller roles after the show ended, starring in films like Our Family Wedding, 2010, The Roommate, 2011, and The Bachelors, 2015. But nothing quite compared to her hilarious and outlandishly misguided performance as Miss Morello. In fact, Jacqueline was called up to reprise her role in the animated Everybody Still Hates Chris, keeping the Miss Morello legacy alive. Now 56, Jacqueline is still going strong, still beautiful, and still rocking that same unique style of comedy that made Miss Morello such a memorable character. Her portrayal of a character who was kind of racist, intentionally or not, made for some of the funniest moments on the show. Now let's head right into the hallway of Corleone Junior High and meet Joey Caruso, played by Travis Flory. Joey, of course, was the high school bully who made Chris's life a living nightmare. From day one, this guy was on Chris's case, tormenting him left, right, and center. And let's not forget, while Chris did stand up for himself from time to time, Joey's bullying was relentless. Whether it was shoving him in lockers or making him the target of his jokes, Joey Caruso was the kind of bully who would make anyone's first day of school feel like a nightmare. Travis Flory, the actor behind Joey Caruso, was just 13 years old at the time, and he nailed the role. He played it so well that it almost felt like he could have been the kind of kid to go on and be a bully in real life. Just for the record, we're hoping that wasn't the case. But unfortunately, life wasn't as kind to Travis as he was to Chris. His career never really took off, and his last appearance on screen was about 10 years ago. But hey, he's now 32, and it's never too late, right? Maybe, just maybe, one day we'll see him back on screen, bullying the heck out of someone else, in a fictional way of course. We wish him all the best, and hope to see him in more roles soon. Up next is Malvo. Oh man, this dude terrified me. Played by the late Ricky Harris, Malvo was that intimidating street guy who had Chris shaking in his cheap sneakers every time he walked into Doc's store. With that deep voice and unbothered stare, he could make stealing candy look like a felony. Whether he was threatening Chris into doing his dirty work or just casually robbing the place with a smile, Malvo was the kind of character who was both hilarious and low-key terrifying. Ricky Harris was 42 at the time he took on the role of Malvo, and by then, he was already a seasoned actor. Before stepping into the world of Everybody Hates Chris, Ricky had built quite the resume. He'd been in Poetic Justice, Tales from the Hood, High School High, and Thick as Thieves. He also did voice work on the Boondocks and had a strong presence in stand-up and hip-hop circles. Sadly, Ricky Harris passed away in 2016, leaving behind 2 children. It's heartbreaking that we lost such a talented, funny, and versatile performer. But even though he's gone, his unforgettable performance as Malvo, both scary and hysterical, still lives on. Rest in peace, Ricky. You were one of a kind. Up next is Monk. Oh boy, you remember Monk. Played by Todd Bridges, Monk was that ex-military dude who hung out on the block and always had a wild, slightly terrifying story to tell. This guy could be posting up by the store one minute and the next, he's telling Chris how the government implanted tracking devices in watermelons. Yeah, Monk wasn't exactly the chill neighbor, but he was unforgettable. Monk was actually the nephew of Doc Harris, the wise old store owner who gave Chris jobs and life advice. Whenever Doc wasn't around, Monk would step in and hold things down at the store, kind of. With his military-style outfits, his trusty beret, and his 1,000-yard stare, Monk was clearly a man who'd seen some things. His behavior, full of paranoia and random outbursts, hinted at PTSD from his time as a Vietnam War vet. He was quirky, unpredictable, and had Chris and the rest of the block walking on eggshells sometimes. Todd Bridges, the man behind the madness, was 39 when he joined Everybody Hates Chris. But this wasn't his first rodeo. Todd had already cemented his place in TV history decades earlier as Willis Jackson on the classic 70s sitcom Different Strokes. What you talking about, Willis? Yeah, that's him. He also starred in Fish back in 1977. Most recently, his last major appearance was on Celebrity Big Brother in 2022. He's 59 now, keeps a low profile, and doesn't pop up on screens much these days. But for anyone who remembers Monk, it's safe to say he made his mark. Now let's talk about Tasha, the girl who had Chris completely tongue-tied. Played by Paige Hurd, Tasha was the pretty girl next door who somehow made awkward silence feel like a full conversation. She lived with her grandmother, and every time she popped up on screen, you could practically hear Chris's heartbeat through the TV. We've all had a Tasha at some point in life, the one who made you suddenly forget how to speak. Paige was just 14 years old when she stepped into this role, but she was already a little star in the making. Before Everybody Hates Chris, she hit the big screen and cradled to the grave back in 2003, acting alongside DMX and Jet Li. How's that for a flex? She also popped up in shows like Felicity, Boomtown, The Division, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Medium, and ER. Girl was booked and busy. Fast forward to now, Paige is 32 and still holding it down in the industry. Most recently, she's been killing it on Power Book 2. She's proof that you don't have to peak early to stay relevant. Tasha may have had Chris wrapped around her finger, but Paige, she's out here owning her lane, and we love to see it. Up next, we've got Jerome. Yep, that Jerome, played by Cavante Jackson. You remember the guy, always posted up on the block, leaning in like, "Let me hold $1, Chris." It didn't matter the day or the situation, Jerome was gonna ask. He was part hustler, part neighborhood character, and somehow, even though you knew he was a crook, you couldn't help but laugh when he popped up. Cavante Jackson was 22 when he played Jerome, and to this day, people still recognize him for that role. Like, imagine going grocery shopping and someone yells, "Let me hold $1." That's his legacy. But Cavante's done more than just Jerome. He's had roles in The Shield, CSI New York, and Whitney. And more recently, he showed up in a series called Spook Hunters. A bit wild, but hey, he's out here working. Now 43, Cavante shifted a lot of his focus to music, which, honestly, he's always loved. He was doing music even before the Everybody Hates Chris days. Whether he's on screen or in the studio, it's clear the man's got talent and hustle in his DNA. And speaking of hustlers, how could we forget Risky, the neighborhood plug, with everything you didn't know you needed? Played by Mike Time, Risky was that streetwise character who always had a trunk full of discounted goods. His real name? Richard. But come on, nobody called him that. He was risky to everybody. And for good reason. Whether he was selling bootleg DVDs, off-brand cologne, or a designer handbag that may or may not have had the logo slightly sideways, he had it all. Mike Time was just 22 when Everybody Hates Chris premiered, but he brought Risky to life like he was your cousin's friend from around the way. That mix of charm and hustle made him a fan favorite, and even though Risky was always operating on the fringes of the law, he was somehow endearing. Like, you knew you shouldn't buy that $5 microwave from the trunk of his car, but you probably did anyway. After the show wrapped, Mike shifted gears a bit. He moved more behind the scenes, focusing on writing and directing. But don't get it twisted. He's still in the game. In 2021, he popped up in an episode of The Neighborhood, reminding everyone that he still got it. Now 42, Mike mostly spends his time doing stand-up comedy, and trust me, he's still hilarious. That risky charm, yeah, it never left. Every block has that one mysterious dude with a wild story and even wilder hair. And in Everybody Hates Chris, that was Kill Moves, played perfectly by the one and only Jerome Poindexter. You'd see him wander in the block talking to himself, yelling about the government, and somehow always showing up at just the right time to drop a weirdly deep piece of wisdom. I mean, the man taught Drew karate. And somehow it worked? Don't let the trench coat and fingerless gloves fool you. Kill Moves wasn't your average street wanderer. Turns out, this man came from money. Like, big money. His mom, Kathleen Devereaux, is a literal millionaire. But Kill Moves? He chose the streets. Why? Because, in his words, or what we imagine he'd say, the streets are free and the soup kitchens have the best mac and cheese. The man was living by his own rules. A philosopher in a tattered hoodie. Jerome Poindexter, the actor behind the madness, wasn't new to the screen when he took on this role. He had already been in heavy-hitter films like The Color Purple, Devil in a Blue Dress, and Aquila and the Bee. You probably also caught him in Set It Off, 1996, Hot Boys, 2000, and The Wash, 2001. And he's graced your TV screen in shows like Martin and Saving Grace. This guy's resume is as layered as Kill Move's coat collection. In 2022, he made a surprise appearance in an episode of The Chi, showing he's still got the juice. And yes, he reprised his role as Kill Moves in the animated reboot Everybody Still Hates Chris. Because how do you reboot Bed-Stuy without Kill Moves lurking in the background like Batman in a shopping cart? Now, at 74 years old, Jerome Poindexter is still kicking, and we wish him continued health, peace, and unlimited karate wisdom. Next up, we got Little James. Yeah, that James, played by Blake Hightower. Now, if you remember this kid, you know he had two things on his mind: grown folks' business and Tanya Rock. James was that one kid in the neighborhood who just acted way too grown for his age. He had a slick mouth, a little too much confidence, and absolutely zero shame about letting the world know he had a big ol' crush on Tanya. Like, bold. But James wasn't just hanging around for love. Nah, he was a regular at Manny's barbershop, chilling with the grown folks like he was 30. He'd be posted up in the chair, ear hustling on debates about who had the best jump shot, or chiming in on neighborhood gossip like he paid rent. And the funniest part, the adults actually listened to him. James had a weird way of fitting in. Like, one minute he was trading Pokemon cards, the next he's arguing about Reaganomics with grown men. Blake Hightower was just 11 years old when he took on the role. And would you believe this was his very first TV appearance? Not bad for a debut, huh? From there, he kept the momentum going, landing roles in movies like Freedom Writers, 2007, Be Kind Rewind, 2008, and Imagine That, 2009. The kid had range. Now, Blake is 30 years old and still out here hustling, grinding, showing up, and doing what he can to keep the dream alive. We love to see it. Hopefully, the world hasn't hardened him too much, and he's still shooting his shot like he did with Tanya back in the day. And that's a wrap on Everybody Hates Chris, then and now. Crazy how far they've all come, right? If you enjoyed the trip down memory lane, like, subscribe, and let me know who your favorite was. Catch you in the next one.